Have you ever noticed how some people seem to learn things incredibly fast? The person who picks up a guitar and, within 6 months, is already playing complex pieces, while others struggle with basic chords for years. Or the person who learns a new language in a few months, while most quit before the first year ends. We usually explain this with talent, genetics, natural gifts, luck. But that explanation is wrong. There is, in fact, a technique, a process that can dramatically speed up learning and help you acquire or master almost any skill in a short time. The samurai of feudal Japan had already identified this accelerated learning process more than 400 years ago. They didn't call it a productivity trick or a scientific framework. They called it shuhari, shoshin, and mushin, 3 principles that turned ordinary men into highly skilled masters. And today, if you understand how to apply them, these same principles can help you master skills at a surprising pace. And to be clear, this is not about motivation or generic self-improvement. This is about a learning system so effective that it was used for generations by warriors, Zen monks, and Japanese craftsmen. It is a system that modern neuroscience now confirms actually works. That is what we will explore in today's video. But before we get into how to apply these 3 principles in practice, leave a comment below. What skill do you want to master in the next 6 months? Do you want to learn something new, change careers, or build something meaningful? It can be anything. Also, consider liking the video and clicking the hype button. It really helps the channel reach more people. Thank you to everyone who continues to support the channel. Now, back to the video. Chapter 1, Shoshin. Beginner's Mindset. Let's start with the most counterintuitive principle of all, Shoshin. If you've been following this channel for some time, you know I've already made a video about Shoshin. In this one, however, I'm combining it with other core Japanese philosophies to strengthen your learning process. And there is no better place to begin. Shoshin is the foundation of everything. It literally means beginner's mind. And I know how it sounds, like you're supposed to pretend you know nothing. But that's not what it means at all. Shoshin is the practice of clearing your mind of assumptions. It's about removing ego. It's about letting go of the thought that says, I already know this. You've probably experienced this before. You start learning something new, but you keep thinking, this is similar to what I already know. So you skip steps, overlook details, and later realize you never truly learned it. That behavior is the opposite of Shoshin. The samurai believed the greatest obstacle to learning wasn't ignorance, it was the illusion of knowledge. Let me give you an example. In 16th century feudal Japan, a young warrior arrived at the dojo of a respected samurai master. He had trained in swordsmanship for 3 years and had already won several duels. He arrived confident. The master looked at him and said, "Forget everything you've learned. You know nothing." The young man was offended. "What do you mean I know nothing? I've won 7 duels." The master replied, "You won despite your technique, not because of it. You fight with the confidence of someone who believes he already knows, and that will eventually get you killed." Then the master did something unexpected. He made the warrior hold the sword as if it were the first time in his life. Basic grip. Simple posture. Fundamental movements, starting from 0. The young man spent weeks doing nothing else, holding the sword, feeling its weight, understanding its balance. Did it feel like wasted time? But 2 years later, he became one of that master's most dangerous disciples. Because he learned through Shoshin, an empty mind, no ego, no shortcuts. Now apply this to your own life. Want to learn programming? Don't skip the fundamentals just because you already know how to use a computer. Want to learn guitar? Don't ignore posture because you already know how to strum. Shoshin means accepting that, in this moment, you are a beginner. And beginners aren't embarrassed to ask simple questions. They aren't afraid to move slowly. They don't avoid the basics. Do you know what happens when you truly embrace Shoshin? You learn faster because you're not unlearning bad habits. You're not fighting your own ego. You're simply absorbing information. It's like formatting a hard drive before installing new software. The installation runs far more efficiently. You might be thinking, you promised faster learning, and now you're talking about spending weeks on fundamentals. Exactly. That's where most people fail. Many believe they've mastered a subject, only to discover later that they never truly understood it, forcing them to go back and relearn what they should have known from the start. How many professionals do you know who lack even a solid grasp of their own field? Shoshin removes this problem at the root. And this isn't just philosophy. There's science behind it. Neuroscience calls this optimized neuroplasticity. When you genuinely enter learning mode, without resistance, without the thought, I already know this, the brain forms stronger and faster neural connections. Dr. Carol Dweck, a Stanford psychologist, spent over 30 years studying what she calls the growth mindset. Her research showed that people who believe they can always learn and who don't cling to what they already know learn up to 40% faster than those with a fixed mindset. Shoshin isn't mysticism. It's neuroscience expressed through samurai philosophy. But Shoshin alone isn't enough. Being open to learning is one thing. Knowing how to structure learning is another. That's where the second principle comes in. Chapter 2, Shuhari, the progressive structure of learning. Shuhari is the map, the compass, the operating system of samurai education. It works in 3 stages. Shu, obey, copy, imitate precisely. Break, question out. Re, transcend, create, innovate. It sounds simple, but most people fail at the very first stage. That's why learning takes them years instead of months. Let me explain. Shu means obey. This is the phase where you copy without questioning, modifying, or personalizing. No, I prefer it this way. You find a master or a proven system and replicate it exactly. The samurai took this seriously. When a student entered a dojo, he might spend years doing nothing but copying the master's movements, form by form, step by step. No variation. No creativity. Does that sound boring? Restrictive? Exactly. And that's why it works. At the Shu stage, you don't yet know enough to improvise. Any change you make is based on ignorance, not understanding. Think of a baby learning to speak. The baby doesn't invent grammar. It repeats sounds, mama, dada, water. Sounds become words. Words become sentences. Sentences become thought. That is Shu. This is the Shu phase, pure imitation. And here's what's interesting, most people skip this stage entirely. They want to inject their personality into the process from day one. They want to do things their own way immediately. As a result, they keep moving in circles for years, sometimes decades, without making real progress. Now we move to Ha, which means break. This is the stage where questions finally begin. But only after you've truly mastered the basics, and by mastery I don't mean partial understanding. I mean deep, consistent execution. In the Ha phase, you take what you've learned and begin to test it. You start exploring variations and asking, what happens if I do this differently? What if I change that? The samurai only entered this stage after many years of training because they understood something crucial. To break the rules properly, you must first understand them completely. Think about Bruce Lee. He trained in Wing Chun, a traditional form of Kung Fu, for years. He followed every rule, every form, every movement exactly as his master taught him. Only later did he begin to question things. Why do we always stay in this stance? Why not combine high kicks with low strikes? Why not adapt techniques to real-world situations? Through this process of questioning, he eventually created Jeet Kune Do, a new system. But that only happened because he first mastered the old one. That's the Ha phase. Then we reach the final stage, Re, which means transcend. Re is the point where you no longer rely on a system because you have become the system. You don't need to consciously think through rules or techniques. You simply act. Miyamoto Musashi reached this stage. He didn't fight by recalling techniques. He fought the way one breathes, instinctive, fluid, natural. But he only arrived there because he passed through Shu and Ha first. Musashi himself admitted in the Book of 5 Rings that his earlier victories weren't due to a true understanding of strategy. He wrote that he began training day and night to seek the deeper principle, and only at the age of 50 did he naturally arrive at the path of strategy. Most people want to start at Re. They want to be original and creative from the beginning. And because of that, they never truly get started. Now let's make this practical. Want to learn graphic design? Shu, copy designs you admire, pixel by pixel, color by color. Don't invent anything yet. Just replicate. Start combining styles, testing variations. What if this font is paired with that color scheme? You develop a style that's unmistakably yours. People see your work and recognize it instantly. Want to learn writing? Shu, copy the structure of writers you respect. Mix techniques, experiment with voice, rhythm, and pacing. You write in a way that only you can. Here's the part most people never hear. The majority never reach Re, and that's fine. Even reaching already places you in the top tier of any skill. The key difference is that you didn't skip steps. You built a solid foundation. One important note, during the copying phase, you're not meant to plagiarize and present others' work as your own. You're meant to understand how their techniques function so deeply that you can eventually create something new from them. That's how you break through, rebuild, and transcend. After all of this, we move to the final stage of mastery. Chapter 3, Mushin, Automation and Mastery. At this point, you have the right mindset, Shun. You have the right structure, Shuhari. But one critical element is still missing. That final piece is Mushin. Mushin means no mind, or more accurately, a mind free of conscious interference. I've discussed this concept before, but remember what I said earlier. Keep an open mind. Don't assume you've mastered it just because you've heard it before. Mushin is the state where action happens without deliberate thought. The skill becomes so automatic that conscious thinking actually slows you down. Think about typing on a keyboard. You don't think about pressing each key. Your fingers already know. Or driving home and suddenly realizing you've arrived without remembering every turn. Your body handled it automatically. That is Mushin. For the samurai, Mushin was the highest level of mastery. The moment when the sword became part of the body. There was no decision to attack or defend, only action. In this state, you are faster, more accurate, and more efficient. But because conscious thought is slow. Here's what's happening in the brain. When you're learning something new, the prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for reasoning and decision-making, is highly active. You have to think through every movement, every step, every choice. But as you keep practicing, your brain gradually transfers these tasks to the cerebellum and basal ganglia, the areas responsible for automatic movements. It's as if your brain is saying, I understand this now. I don't need to spend conscious energy on it anymore. I'll automate it. That's when you enter Mushin. World-class musicians, elite athletes, surgeons, programmers, and artists all describe this same experience. The moment where it feels like you disappear and the skill simply happens through you. The samurai called this effortless action. Modern psychology calls it the flow state. The name doesn't matter. What matters is that Mushin is real, and it's the ultimate goal of any learning process. Here's the catch. You can't force Mushin. The harder you try to enter this state, the more trapped you become in your own mind. Mushin isn't something you chase. It emerges naturally after you've done the work. Shoshin prepares your mind. Shuhari gives you structure. Mushin is the natural result of following the first two steps. Think of it like this. You don't decide to enter Mushin while playing guitar. You practice with the right mindset, following the right structure, repeatedly. Then, one day in the middle of a song, you realize your fingers just know where to go. That's Mushin. Conscious repetition eventually becomes unconscious mastery. Samurai practiced katas, sequences of movements, thousands of times, not out of ignorance, but because repetition transforms conscious effort into instinctive action. And remember, Mushin isn't mental laziness. It's not switching off your brain. It's the brain operating at maximum efficiency, so smoothly that it feels effortless. Here's the deeper insight. These principles weren't created to help you learn quickly. They were designed for survival. In feudal Japan, failing to master the sword quickly meant death. There was no try again tomorrow. Either you learned or you were destroyed. This life or death pressure forced samurai to develop the most efficient learning system in human history. A system that, even 400 years later, you can apply to anything: programming, music, languages, writing, design, entrepreneurship, you name it. And the best part? You don't need a life or death battle to use it. You just need to commit fully. So here's the summary. To master any skill at an extraordinary pace, you need 3 things. Shoshin, beginner's mind. Empty your ego, accept that you don't know, and absorb everything. Shuhari, structured progression. First copy, then adapt, and finally innovate. Mushin, automation. Practice until the skill becomes instinctive, until you no longer need to think about it. This isn't a magic shortcut. It's a proven system. Samurai didn't become masters because of talent. They became masters because they followed a method tested over generations. And now, you have that method. The question is, will you apply it or keep trying to learn on your own, skipping steps, chasing immediate results without structure? Because here's the truth, talent doesn't exist. Method exists. And now you have the method. If you've watched this far, congratulations. That shows more drive than most people. If you want to go even deeper into the science and art of learning, check out the video appearing on your screen now. In it, I explore additional techniques to complement everything you've learned here. Thank you for watching until the end. That proves you take learning seriously. Remember, it's not about being the fastest, it's about being consistent. The samurai understood this. Now you do too. Stay strong. See you in the next video.